What if I were to tell you that you are literally setting your dates up for failure? And it's not because you're not charismatic, you don't have chemistry, you don't have good game. It's that literally when you planned the date, it was already destined to fail. Most guys are making these mistakes over and over and ruining perfectly good dates. And I want you to stop right now. So I'm going to tell you in this video what are those mistakes and how you can stop making them today. Now, this list of dating blunders that I'm about to give you is going to seem incredibly particular and specific. That's because these little things are truly, truly pivotal. They matter that much. Trust me, these things matter a ton. The first mistake I want to talk to you about is the 1 car per date rule. When you show up on a date, you want 1 car or 0 cars. You do not want 2 cars on the date. Let's say you meet for a date, you both drove, and now you want to go home together. You could drive and have her follow you home or something weird and awkward like that, but now it doesn't feel like it just happened. Now it feels very put on. How much better would it be if you just had your car and could drive her home, or she had her car and could drive you home, or you both came together and you take an Uber? 2 cars absolutely, totally ruins the vibe, and it's so avoidable. And here's how you avoid it. You just ask the girl when setting up the date, hey, are you driving? Parking can be tough. If she says she's driving, then you don't drive. Or you do drive and you park somewhere where you can leave your car overnight if you need to, and that way you can go home with her. The second date planning blunder I've definitely mentioned on my channel before, but that's because it is so important. Do not meet in the middle for your dates. If you live here and she lives here, ideally meet near you. Have her come to you because it's a cool place. You can even send a car to bring her there if you need to, but get her near your place so that if things go well, you can actually take her home. If that's not happening, meet near her so that if things go well, you can go back to her place. Meeting in the middle sucks. And it's kind of for a similar reason to the 2 cars or 1 car situation, right? You're going this way, she's going this way. It's hard to make it natural and normal that you're both going that same direction together. It just becomes awkward. It just messes things up. And I cannot tell you how many times I've had a great date, great chemistry, or making out, and then it's time to go home and it's just a little awkward. Oh, I'm going half an hour this way, you're going half an hour this way. Okay, well, maybe we should just do a second date. And now you have to go back through that whole phone date setting process again instead of just being right there in the moment like you'd like to be. Date planning blunder number 3, not considering the seating arrangement. Ideally, if you are a beginner or intermediate at going on dates, you want a seating arrangement where you are next to the girl, where you can actually physically touch the girl, where you can potentially make out with the girl. As you get more advanced, it's okay to violate this one occasionally because you're going to have a lot of sexual tension on your dates and you don't necessarily need to kiss early on. But until kissing becomes an absolute foregone conclusion on the vast majority of your dates, you want to sit in a place where you can kiss. Another part of sitting in a place where you can kiss is an environment where you can kiss. If you're in a coffee shop with a bunch of kids running around and bright neon lights, you're probably not kissing on that date. That's also a problem. So you want to consider the seating arrangement, consider the ambiance. You want a scenario where if things go well, you can actually take advantage of that and get physical. Next, date planning blunder. There are certain dates which just suck, in particular as first dates. One of the worst dates you can go on is going to a comedy show or a movie as your first date, if that is the only thing you're doing on the date. And the problem there is that your main objective on a date is to have an interaction with the girl in front of you, not to have an interaction with whoever directed the movie or to have an interaction with the comedian on stage. If you're not able to actually talk and interact during the date, you're not conveying your value, you're not conveying your personality, you're not actually progressing the relationship on that particular date. Now, if you were to do one of those things that was short, like you watched like a 15-minute comedy act and then you went and had drinks and that was the majority of the night was the drinks, that could be okay. But you do not want to have a night where you're on a date with a girl and you don't really interact with her. You're just passive observers of something else that's going on. Quick note on this one, it primarily applies to first dates. If you've already had a first date, and especially if on that first date you already were a bit physical and you already did exchange a lot of get to know you information, it's quite possible a lot of what you're doing on the second date is honestly just spending time and building comfort, in which case this kind of date actually could be acceptable. Next, date planning error, not being aware of the trajectory of the date. You see, there are 2 different positive outcomes for a date. One is sleeping with the girl, the other is getting a second date. And the problem is some of the things you do that may lead to one may actually make the other one more difficult. So you need to decide based on how things are going, based on what the logistics are, based on what the time constraints are, which one you are going for. If you're meeting a girl very briefly, and we'll talk about that in another point later, but if you're meeting a girl very briefly and there's not enough time for a lot of escalation, you're probably playing for a second date. If you have all night and things are going well, you're probably going for taking her home that night. But the problem is, if you get very physical and forward, that's actually going to hurt the odds of a second date. Whereas if you are too platonic and nice, which makes the second date more possible or at least less of a risk, well, now you're not going to escalate to the point of actually having sex with the girl. So you need to decide which branch you're on. Because if you're on this branch and you do it right, that's fine. If you do this branch correctly, that's fine. But if you go in the middle, you're likely to get neither outcome. The next two date planning mistakes are super, super common, and honestly, they're forgivable, because if you're not getting a lot of dates, you may be desperate and you just want to get the date no matter what. But I promise you, setting it up the right way is still going to really up your results. And the first one of these is setting the date too far in advance. Let's say you're having a busy week, she's having a busy week, and you can't set the date for at least a week out, or even worse, multiple weeks out. That's a problem, because now you've set the date, you've escalated as far as you can in terms of flirting and the banter over the phone, you've kind of come to a culmination, but now you have to kill time. And it's very, very hard to just kill time in a conversation. When a conversation has an objective, there's tension, there's motivation, it's interesting, it's engaging. As soon as you're just killing time, it starts to become very stale and very, very boring. If you do set a date a week in advance, you need to have touch points throughout the week. And what I really recommend is actually leaving some of the pieces of the date undecided. Like, you can have a vague idea of getting drinks, but not know the exact time or the exact location or what type of drinks you're gonna get, those kind of things, so that you can fill in those details naturally and it doesn't feel like you just have nothing to talk about and you're just making filler. But ideally, try to set the date closer to the time, or possibly even set a tentative date and then say, okay, we'll talk a few days before and figure out the last details. You just don't want a situation where there's literally nothing to talk about for a week and you just need to fill the silence. Oops, we ran out of light. But that's actually ironically kind of perfect, because it's very similar to the next point I want to make, which is you don't want to run out of time on your dates. You do not want to schedule your dates in a way where you're going to hit upon a hard stop that brings the date to a close, because dates tend to build over time. You need to get to a critical mass of affection, connection, possibly physical escalation if you want the girl to go home with you, or if you want to get a second date. So if the girl says she can schedule a date with you, but she only has an hour and a half and then she's going to go meet her friends afterwards, what I really suggest, and this is hard to do if you're needy and scarce and don't have a lot of girls in your life, but what I really suggest is you tell her no. You say, hey, listen, it seems like you're pretty busy that night. Let's just schedule for another night. And a lot of great things will happen when you do this. A lot of times the girl will actually be like, you know what, actually I can cancel that thing, I'll just go with you. And she gives you a proper window and she's much more invested. Or possibly she says, yeah, you're right, why don't we do this day instead? And then you get a date that has a proper time window. Oftentimes that time window is not a real thing. Maybe she wants to see you, but she's a little nervous and she wants an out. But then as soon as she might lose you, as soon as she doesn't completely have you, she realizes how much she really wants to see you and she's willing to commit. Or possibly she's just eager to see you as soon as possible and she hasn't thought ahead, but as soon as you actually think ahead and plan better, she realizes she actually would like a real date and she actually sets aside the time. The point is this: you only get one shot at a first date. Partly because first impressions last, and partly because if the first date's not good enough, you're never gonna see the girl again. So make sure that you set up the first date in a way that actually can succeed. Don't sabotage yourself before you even start. Now, I know a few of those points may seem really nitpicky. You're probably thinking, Todd, does it really matter that much? And the answer is yes, it really does. Don't set yourself up for failure. So now that we have the planning aspect out of the way, the next step is being charismatic and figuring out how to actually escalate and take the date somewhere. For that, I highly recommend you check out my courses, The System or Online Dating Academy, depending if you want to do live dates or if you want to get your dates from online. But those are amazing courses to take you to the next step. Check those out. I will see you there, hopefully, and I'll see you on the next video. Take care.